environment and protecting our natural resources always gets shortchanged. There's so much to compete with in terms of education and transportation and healthcare that the environment always came out on the end. And for a long time, we've been treating our rivers as sewers. We've drained our wetlands away. Businesses have put toxic chemicals into the ground and contaminated our groundwater. And this is going to take a sizable investment of money to clean all this up and restore it to a healthy ecosystem. Those are the things that sustain us in the future, and that's what our future generations are going to need. Minnesotans actually appropriated the funds to do this by taxing themselves, and I think it's a trust issue with our governmental leadership, whether at the Capitol or in the governor's office, that these funds be used as the intention was in the constitutional amendment, so that we actually accomplish what we set out to do. I think we all need to be aware of what our role is in helping be good stewards. If people have special places that they care about, special lakes, rivers that are dear to them, I hope that they will be a voice to protect those resources, those waters, those special places, and realize we all need to be stewards of our waters and land. What will you do as governor to safeguard our current conservation investments and ensure that the funds from the Clean Water, Land, and Legacy Amendment are used effectively and consistent with the intent of Minnesota voters?
And this time we'll start with Mr. Intenza.
Thank you. Well, it was so heartening in 2008 to see 57% of Minnesotans say that they wanted to make sure that we use some of our revenue to make sure that we're preserving habitat and making sure that our natural environment is protected. But not surprisingly, in tough budget times, we've seen some political leaders not follow that mandate. And Governor Pawlenty's budget took a lot of the existing funding we had, because the Conservation Amendment was passed in part on the idea that this would be additional funding, as opposed to supplementing the funding that we have now. And that what the governor did is he then tried to use the new money to backfill for programs that we already have. And that's not right. And indeed, we saw some Democrats doing that as well. We need a governor who is going to make sustainability and going to make the clean energy economy and preservation of our land a core piece of what he or she is going to do. And I have made that a core part of my agenda. That is my job strategy, and it's my belief that that's what we have to do for the future of the state. And I'd urge you to go to intenza.com and take a look at my website, where you'll see front and center, that is what I believe we need to do. I mean, growing up in southwest Minnesota, where we've seen our waters polluted with agricultural runoff, and going up north where we're seeing mining and other things that are polluting our waters, and where we're seeing virgin lands that have been turned over to other uses, we need to make sure we're protecting our resources. And as someone who was an environmental studies major in college, I've known for years this is the direction the state has to go.
Mr. Dayton.
Jill, as you said in your question, the people of Minnesota made it very clear by passing that constitutional amendment that they wanted additional investment in clean water, in clean air, and protecting our natural environment, in parks and trails, and the arts. And unfortunately, of the 12 people appointed to that commission to head up the outdoor heritage part of it, the Senate appointed one woman by statute, Senator Ellen Anderson, and the House leadership and the governor did not appoint a single woman to that commission. I think half of that commission should be made up of women. And Jill, you and others who share that concern for enforcing that amendment's commitment to protecting our citizens, protecting our national environment, deserve the same voice as everyone else. And you'll have that voice if I'm governor. I will also, and I agree with Mr. Intenza, that the danger is that an administration such as Governor Pawlenty's, and certainly some minds in the legislature, see those additional funds not as additions, but as replacements for money that they can cut out of that commitment through the legislative process. As governor, I will insist that those be additional dollars and additional investments in our natural resource protection and enhancement, and I will insist that the existing commitments under statute be honored so that we have both, not one or the other.
Mr. Horner.
Listening to Mark, it sounds like I'm going to have to get a button that says I'm a man and I care about wildlife habitat. You know, this isn't about gender politics, and you ought to get tired, and I suspect you do, of listening to politicians who sit up here and say, oh no, don't worry, we're going to fund this, we're going to fund that, we're going to pay for this, we're going to subsidize that, we're going to invest more money here. Here's the reality. The first year of the new governor, we're going to face a budget shortfall of $5 to $7 billion. To put that in some context, $5 to $7 billion, it's about half of all that we spend on K-12 education. $5 to $7 billion, it's about half of what we collect in individual income taxes. We have some serious challenges that are going to require some serious priority setting. Certainly, without question, protecting our natural heritage ought to be a priority. It will be a priority in my administration. But we're going to have to do it smartly, we're going to have to do it honestly, and we're going to have to do it with respect for you, the people who are paying for it. I think it is outrageous that you passed a constitutional amendment willing to tax yourself specifically to protect, enhance, and preserve natural wildlife habitats, and now that money is being used for a lot of political special interests. If we're going to restore trust in government, we need to have honest conversations with you about what we can and can't do. We need to set priorities, and we need to build good public policy on the basis of reform.
Mr. Hahn.
I'd like to pick up right where Tom left off. I agree that when the voters speak, we need to listen as leaders, as politicians. When the monies are designated for something very specifically, as they were, we have to use those monies in those ways. And to do it any other way or to shortcut it is just wrong. Unethical, if not potentially illegal in some cases. Now, I grew up in Winona along the Mississippi River, and we used to spend a lot of time in the river, swimming, water skiing, things like that. I'm not sure I would be as comfortable doing that these days. I haven't been in the river for years, but I know how polluted the river and different waters throughout the state have become. I think government has a role to be a leader. It has a role to enforce, especially working with businesses, and enforce laws that are in place already, anti-pollution laws. But, as I said earlier, there's a lot of aspects that come down to personal responsibility. We cannot mandate and legislate everything through government. We have to lead through our examples, lead through promoting, but we can't mandate everything. So I think it comes down to personal responsibility, using rain buckets so we don't have fertilizers going into the water system, foregoing some of the Scott chemicals you use on your lawn. Simple things like that, and then share it with your neighbors so they can kind of have that same mentality. Maybe it's something they've never thought of. It comes down to leading by example.